Hello everyone, back tuning into today's second video. So we're going to have a look at the weather for the next week's 10 days for today's second video. This will take us to around the 27th of July, so heading into the final stages of the month with the week's 10-day updates now. We'll have a look at CFSB2 as well. I don't normally include that on a Tuesday now. Normally have CFS month head on a Monday and a Friday. But I thought I'd just include it today because it has given out quite an interesting update for the August part of the 4-weekly update. So I'll show you that towards the end of the video. August has always been kind of like a joke in the path of this summer. It's been always been very difficult to ascertain whether this high pressure that's given us such a hot and dry first half of summer, whether this high pressure is going to carry on into the final month, into August of the summer. And August remains a little bit of an enigma, really. It remains a little bit of a mystery as to what exactly is going to happen in August. So I have a little bit on that for you towards the end of the video, but we'll deal with the next week's 10 days first of all. But for all of that, I've got to say a big thank you to our latest donor for Gazworthy. So Stephen Godfrey has become Gazworthy's latest donor via PayPal. So a big thank you to Stephen. Big shout out to Stephen for becoming Gazworthy's latest donor. If you would like to join Stephen and many others who have been donors and patrons to Gazworthy's, there's two ways of doing it. You can give us a donation through PayPal. So all you have to do is come to our Gazworthy's paypal.me page, and this is it. If you've got a PayPal account, it's very simple. You just very simply give a donation for whatever amount of money you would like, and that's how you do it through PayPal. The link to the Gazworthy's paypal.me page is in the description box at YouTube, and we also link to this all pages at Gazworthy's website. And also there's Patreon. So if you'd like to become a patron for Gazworthy's, and to do that you just give us a you just sign up for a Patreon account, and then you give us a monthly donation. It could be anything as little as $1 a month, and by doing that you become a patron for Gazworthy's. And again, whether you're a donor through PayPal or a patron through Patreon, you will get a shout out in the videos. You will get a mention, a thank you, like Stephen has done today. So you'll get a mention in the videos if you want one. If you would rather stay anonymous, and a few people have decided they would rather stay anonymous, that's fine. Just leave a message with your donation to let us know that you would rather be kept anonymous, and we'll just say a thank you to the anonymous donor. You'll know who you are. So that's how you do it. So a big thank you to all of the donors and the patrons for Gazworthy's. It's helping us to pay for our website, helping us to stay completely free of charge. We're primarily ads funded, and we're going to remain ads funded as well, primarily. This is just an added revenue stream, given that the money that we get from advertisements, the revenue we earn from the ads, is reducing quite a bit at the moment. So again, big thank you to all of the donors and all of the patrons for Gazworthy's. Right, and we'll get on with the video then. We're going to start off by having a look at the GFS temperature and precipitation ensembles for the next couple of weeks. So we're looking at Winchester today. The red line here is the 30-year upper air temperature average for Winchester. We're starting off close to average, possibly even a little bit below average for today. It certainly does feel a lot cooler and fresher compared to the past few days. Although it's still pretty warm, I say. It's still the middle of July, so it's going to be very warm whenever the sun appears. But it certainly does have a fresher feel across the country today. If you enjoy this fresher, cooler feel, make the most of it, really, is a message from this ensemble, because over the next few days we see the temperatures picking back up again. So by the weekend we're back to square one, back to where we have been throughout this summer, really, with temperatures warmer than average. And in fact it will be turning quite hot, I think, down in the south and the southeast through the course of the weekend and into the early part of next week. Then through the rest of next week, and it takes us now with the ensembles to the start of August, we find that those temperature ensembles are generally staying on the warmer than average side. There are a few cooler outliers appearing there, cooler outliers, but again, they aren't within the majority of the ensembles. The majority of the ensembles are actually warmer than average, between around 10 and 15 Celsius, 850 HPA. So it certainly looks as though we're going to keep warm conditions going through to the end of July. I think we can say that pretty definitively. As far as precipitation is concerned for Winchester, so it looks like this. Lots and lots of dry weather coming up over next week. The dry spell continues. There are precipitation spikes appearing through the final week of July. I think we have to be very cautious about those at this stage, because until we find genuinely wetter conditions coming into the 5 to 10 day time frame, I think anything that's beyond 10 days, certainly from a rainfall perspective, have to be quite dubious about, purely due to the strength of the high pressure this summer and the fact we have been in a prolonged dry spell, especially in the southern part of the country. Service temperatures at Winchester are looking like that. So that's 20 degrees just there, 30 degrees is just there, and 10 degrees is down there. So a little bit cooler at the moment. Remember, these ensemble charts do undercook temperatures a little bit, but it is a bit cooler at the moment. But we will see those temperatures lifting up again as we go through the weekend and into next week. So going at least into the mid to upper 20 Celsius. And there are some ensemble members here that are going up close to 30 degrees through that final week of July, so we may pull up some real heat through the final week of July. At the very least, it's going to stay really warm to hot at times, I think, down in the southern part of the country over the next week to 10 days. This is backed up by the temperature anomalies. From the 17th to 25th of July, they're coming out warmer than average for England and Wales, closer to average for Scotland and Northern Ireland, so it is a little bit cooler up there, but generally it's coming out warmer than average for England and Wales, and most parts of Europe coming out warmer than average. Look how warm it is over Scandinavia. This is something that came through earlier on when we released the ECMWF 30-day forecast for the UK and for Europe too. And in the week ahead, something that did come across very strongly, going to be a very hot week indeed across Scandinavia, especially northern Scandinavia, with temperature anomalies between 8 and 10 degrees above average for them. So the very long, hot European summer continues for many of us. That's how the precipitation anomaly is looking for the week ahead, and it remains as it has been. Again, this came through with the ECMWF 30-day forecast, with the east and the southeast of Europe over towards the Black Sea, from the Adriatic there to the Black Sea over there, we find, and up into southern Russia, we find that many of those eastern, southeastern parts of Europe are wetter than average. In the north and the northwest, it remains generally drier than average. A little bit more rainfall for Scotland, but overall it's a dry scene in the northwest, and it's a wet scene down in the southeast. So this is the midnight run of the GFS. I'm going to include the 2 GFS runs that I've had so far today, the midnight and the 6 o'clock, because they are rather different. So we're going to start off on Friday when we have this warm ridge building in across England and Wales. It will be very warm end to the week, and that high pressure continues to be dominating as we go into the weekend. This is Sunday with a ridge across England and Wales. We could be seeing temperatures back up to the upper 20 Celsius in the south by Sunday under that ridge of high pressure. Be very warm, locally quite hot. There's more of a westerly flow for Scotland. It's quite a weak flow, but it will keep things a little bit cooler, a little bit cloudier, a little bit more showery up there. Then we go through to the early part of next week, and that high pressure is maintained across England and Wales. So again, hot down in the south, I think, through the early part of next week. Always a little bit more unsettled with slightly lower temperatures up in the north. Now that's Tuesday next week, when that ridge is beginning to drift off towards Germany. We've got a weather front that's starting to move down from the northwest. That is coming into very warm or hot air that's been brought up from the south. So possibly hints at a little bit of thunder there through the early part of next week, Tuesday to Wednesday. By Wednesday, this is midnight from Tuesday to Wednesday, we have that low pressure in the southeast. So it's done something like that, pushed in from the northwest. And that does suggest a bit of thunder there, I think, through the early part of next week. But bear in mind, this is quite a way off. We were supposed to have thunder this week, and actually been very little. There was a few heavy showers around yesterday and a few thunderstorms, but generally this week is quite dry. Looks like these generally dry conditions continue into the weekend as well. Now we're hinting at a chance of a bit of thunder early next week, but this keeps being put back all the time. So again, I have to say, till this comes into the 5 to 10 day time frame, I think we do have to stay very dubious about it. Beyond that, we go up to day 10. That takes us to day 10, and essentially we've still got lots of high pressure to the north, to the east. This is day 10, Friday 27th of July. Plenty of high pressure to the north and the east, so that little thundery interlude through the early part of next week. Basically, next week goes back to mainly dry and hot conditions once again. Low pressure is trying to get in from off the Atlantic. And as we go into the more extended range with this GFS run, we do find these low pressures starting to make progress in from off the Atlantic, but not really with conviction. And that's how we finish up at the very end of a GFS run, which is Thursday the 2nd of July, 384 hours away, and we're back to high pressure once again. Some people are asking why we're in such an uncertain period at the moment with the model output, and I think what's happening here is that the Atlantic is definitely trying to get itself going. It's definitely trying to get a bit of oomph about it as we go into the final sort of 10 days of July through to the start of August. The Atlantic is trying to sort of ramp itself up a bit, rev up, and it's trying to bring that jet stream a bit further southwards. So there is actually a little bit of a battle going on here between the Atlantic, which is trying to get itself going after being basically dormant away from Greenland and Iceland anyway for several weeks and months. There's a battle between that and the high pressure, which of course has been the dominating factor really since May, bringing us all of the hot and dry conditions. And that's why we've got such confusion, I think, for August. Now, this is a 6 o'clock run of the GFS, and you will see some differences as we go further out. So for the weekend, no real problems there. The high pressure continues to be close to the south, a little bit of low pressure in the north. So you see what I'm talking about? The Atlantic is trying to get going. We've got this low pressure around Greenland and Iceland. It's trying to bring the jet stream in from off the Atlantic, but the jet stream is still quite weak. The jet stream is still basically weaker than you would expect, and it's not really doing a great deal, but it is trying to have a go to bring these westerlies in, and they are getting into the north of Scotland, but essentially most parts of the country are still under these high pressure conditions from the Azores and extending into France and into south of the UK. So the weekend it's basically hot in the south and a little bit more changeable up in the north. Through the early part of next week, still that idea that the ridge gets shunted off to Germany. There it is, across Germany through Tuesday next week, with the low pressure in the Atlantic. That's bringing a weather front in from off the Atlantic. That front is coming into hot air that's established from the south, so there might be something a bit thundery going on there around a week's time. Now, actually, what this latest 6 o'clock run of the GFS does is it starts to introduce the Atlantic with a little bit more conviction. So you remember the midnight run of the GFS, once that thundery interlude gets out of the way from Tuesday next week, it was keen to build the high pressure back in. This 6 o'clock run of the GFS actually brings in an Atlantic flow as we move to day 10. So that is day 10. With a 6 o'clock run of the GFS. It actually looks quite unsettled with low pressure heading in from off the Atlantic, and we do go into a fairly unsettled period for a few days towards the end of July before maybe having a go getting back to high pressure again. But that just backs up what I'm talking about. We are trying to have a go at re-establishing the Atlantic and the westerlies, but how successful this is going to be, given the strength of the high pressure that we've got this summer, that's what's causing all of the uncertainty within the model output. The atmosphere is trying to return to a westerlies and an Atlantic flow, but the high pressure from the Azores to Scandinavia, that's saying no, you're not coming in, and it's dealing with that duality really between the westerlies and the low pressure around Greenland, Iceland, and the jet stream, alongside the high pressure that is causing a little bit of confusion at the moment. ECMWF looks like that. So again, we've got this ridge close to the country through the course of next weekend, and into the start of next week it will turn increasingly warm to hot in the south over the weekend and into next week again. Then we go through to the early part of next week. Again, this does hint at maybe a little bit of fun to the position of a ridge across central parts of Europe. We've got these low pressures out to the northwest trying to head in from off the Atlantic. Might do something a little bit thundery in around a week's time perhaps. And then into the extended range, that's how we look. So we get to day 10, and the high pressure is still warding off those low pressures. So that's the low pressure in the Atlantic. The jet stream is through there, so it's a little bit further southwards, wants to come in. But these areas of high pressure, we've got high pressure from the Azores, the Atlantic, to Central Europe and going up to Scandinavia. Those high pressures saying, no, you're not coming in, slamming the door shut, and so the jet stream remains up there. But only a subtle adjustment, of course, would allow that low pressure in. So the models have got a lot to be coping with at the moment, and that, I think, is the primary reason they're struggling. Then the GEM, so this one is a little bit more unsettled actually for next week. We start off very similar with the high pressure bringing very warm conditions to England and Wales over the weekend. To the start of next week, a little bit more unsettled in the northwest. But then this low pressure really comes through during the middle of next week. So that's Wednesday, 25th of July, where the low is really there coming in across the country. And notice the jet stream much further south than it's been for a very long time. The black line is the jet stream. It's actually getting itself down into kind of like Ireland and Wales there through the middle part of next week. So that's a lot more unsettled compared to the other two models. And it stays quite unsettled up to day 10 as well, although by day 10, Friday 27th of July, the high pressure is building again to the east of the country, with these low pressures being held at bay to some degree, but that is a little bit more unsettled, I think, with the GEM compared to what the GFS and the ECMWF are showing. And then we'll just have a look at CFS V2. These are the 500 millibar height anomalies broken down into weekly periods. The first weekly period will take us from the 17th to the 23rd of July. The coming week has these above average heights over into the northeast of the country and also in the Atlantic as well. The jet stream is up there somewhere. So a lot of high pressure influences for the week ahead. Little bit of influence from the jet stream doing something a bit like that. So particularly for the northwest, it's a little bit more unsettled compared to what we've had. But basically, we're still under high pressure there. And the CFS wants to carry that on into the final week of July. So this is the 24th through to the 30th of July, with, if anything, the reach strengthening. So that could be quite a heat wave going on there through the final week of July. We're bringing in, I would have thought, really quite hot easterly winds. So the next 2 weeks under high pressure dominated conditions overall, very warm to hot and dry, the Atlantic being held at bay. But look what happens in week 3. This is something that we've not seen for a very, very long time on these charts. This is the 31st of July to the 6th of August. Suddenly, the high pressure, the above average heights, has been moved up to Greenland. And we've got an area of below average heights, low pressure, just to the west-southwest of the country. So, obviously, a breakdown has taken place there. The Atlantic has really come back with the flow and the jets doing something like that. Probably a thundery breakdown initially, but eventually we will go into a much more unsettled spell of weather with that, with bands of rain heading in from off the Atlantic. And then we go through to week 4, which is the 7th to the 13th of July, we're actually parking a trough of low pressure over the top of the UK, with above average heights, a blocking signal from Greenland and going back into the North Pole. So with that, because we've got the blocking over the pole, the jet stream would be displaced down there somewhere. Notice the ridge is building across southeastern parts of Europe as well. So that's a big change. That would bring hot air out of North Africa into the east and the southeast of Europe, and we'd be bringing cool air from the northern latitudes down into that trough of low pressure. That is a very dramatic change that the CFS is going for today for the early part of August. It isn't backed up at all by the ECMWF 30-day update that we just did, by the way. That wants to maintain very warm conditions right the way into the early part of August. So I think we have to be very careful about this, what the CFS is showing. It's a big change on the pattern that we've had so far this summer. And but if it was right, it would be a very dramatic change for August. It would imply that the first half of August has a really different feel compared to anything that's happened so far this summer. And then, because it's all about the CFS V2, I thought finally we just finish off with this. I shouldn't really be showing you this because it's too far away, but this is the winter 2018-19 700 millibar height anomaly from the CFS V2. And it does look quite interesting, actually, because it's got this area of below average heights over and to the east of the UK. And it is actually suggesting a little bit of high pressure, a little bit of above average heights close to Greenland. And that, if it came off, would force a jet stream southwards. So this is a cold trough of low pressure that's over the UK and Central Europe. You'd be ingraining cold air into that trough. It's a very long way off, of course, but it is a little bit different to what the CFS normally goes for, because at this point of the year, the CFS is normally trying to give us Atlantic sort of winter weather as the default pattern, if you like. So it's quite an interesting anomaly, that, for the winter. I'll say no more than that, because it's so far away. I shouldn't really have included it in the video at all, but I thought as we were talking about CFS, why not? You may see one or two more models appearing in the daily weather videos for the winter over the next few weeks, just as we throw the odd one in for you to have a look at. But you just have to see day by day whether they turn up or not, because I never know when I'm going to throw one in at the end of the video. But there may be a few more models appearing for the winter over the next 3 or 4 weeks. Shouldn't have included that. Coming back to the more reliable time frame. So next week, it's a little bit of the uncertainty going on there. I think we do hint at maybe having some quite hot weather to start the week, and possibly a bit of thunder. And then maybe the second half next week, we're kind of like in a duel between westerlies trying to come in and the high pressure keeping it at bay. I would suspect the high pressure probably holds sway, really, for much of next week. So I'd go more with the warmer, drier side of things for next week. Will we get a deterioration into August? Indeed, August continues to be an enigma. It continues to be a real mystery as to what is going to happen in August. I think, as far as that is concerned, we just have to wait and see. I don't think we can say definitively which way this is going to go for August. We've been in a high pressure for a very, very long time now. This all started back in May. So we've kind of like had 3 months of a continuous pattern. It is possible we can carry that on into August as well. Some summers do that. So famously 1995 did that. 1976 also famously did that, managed to maintain the high pressure throughout all 3 summer months. But the longer we go on, the more difficult it becomes to sustain it, if you see what I mean, because eventually we will get a change. Eventually we will break this pattern and we'll get another pattern. It can't go on indefinitely, and the longer it goes on, the harder it becomes to maintain the pattern. So I think August could go either way. I would suggest it's likely that we'll probably keep the hot weather going into August as well. But as I say, the longer we go on with this, the greater the risk that we will eventually break the high pressure that's given us such a prolonged spell of hot and dry weather. So for August, it's still a mystery, and I think we still have to wait and see exactly where that's going. Right, so that's brought you up to date with everything. We've had a look at the next 30 days with the ECM. We've had a detailed look at the next week to 10 days as well. And we even thrown in a chart for the winter too. So I think that's pretty much everything covered for today. Tomorrow we've got the 5-day forecast coming up. And we'll also have another week to 10 day update. Probably see what the Beijing Climate Centre has to say about August tomorrow as well. So come back for all of the updates tomorrow. Bit of an extended one today at 25 minutes today, but I wanted to explain everything that's going on and why there's so much uncertainty at the moment. Right, that's all for now. Thanks for watching.